Thanks for joining us here. I'm Ken Brown, and if something has sparked your curiosity and you'd like to continue some conversation about this, then call me. I'll look forward to spending some time with you. Thank you. The critical path was conceived by Bob Kreitler. He's a friend and colleague of mine with Raymond James, and it's an important tool for understanding our philosophy for managing downside risk. As a component of your risk budget, it's a major influencer of investment policy. From this discussion, we hope you'll take away, first, a clear understanding of your risk budget at work. Secondly, an idea of what you should expect as normal during the accumulation and distribution phases of your portfolio's life. Thirdly, the definition of and the need for and the function of the critical path in your planning. Why? Because research indicates that the number one concern of affluent investors is outliving their resources. This is a tool we use to help alert you to see that that doesn't happen. The notion of the critical path is an important component of your risk budget because it establishes a floor for your portfolio. Your must-achieve objective becomes quantified. If the portfolio value should fall to or below the critical path, a riskless rate investment portfolio must be implemented to ensure you meet your must-achieve objective. The difference at any one point in time between your portfolio's real market value and the critical path value represents your true risk capacity. If we've identified this, our efforts and the client's decisions with us should logically acknowledge that. And this is one step that we take to remove emotion from that equation. See, the critical path serves two functions for measuring and monitoring your progress towards your goal. First, it answers the question, how much capital will I need to ensure that my essential expenses and obligations are always met in retirement, by identifying your must-achieve objective. And secondly, it plots a course in the future to identify how that requirement changes as time passes, in addition to the amount of additional capital required to be set aside. A sound wealth management system must acknowledge two phases: the accumulation phase, your projected annual savings until you reach retirement, and the distribution phase, your incremental spending each year in retirement through your life expectancy. We want to make sure your resources are there when you need them, so we plan for a longer than expected retirement to alleviate the possibility that you could outlive your funds. And we carefully plan and sequence withdrawals so there are no surprises in the process, if possible. For this example, suppose that after we factor in other forms of predictable retirement income, a pension, Social Security, you know that you will need, in addition to inflation, let's say $100,000 a year for each year in retirement. A 35-year retirement horizon until age 100 requires $2.34 million to meet that need. For this example, if you have already saved $1 million, an additional $50,000 is required each year until retirement to reach that goal at the riskless rate. This plots your critical path from the accumulation phase all the way through the distribution phase. In this example, let's suppose that you've committed now substantial assets to your investment portfolio, and your goal is to accumulate perhaps 3 times that amount, and that you want to reach that goal by the time you retire. Depending on your income, your expenses, your time frame until retirement, and other factors, will build your portfolio to target a specific amount of risk, defined again by your risk budget, to create the most common conditions for your portfolio to be in a place to achieve the returns that could get you to your goal. What we must accept is that it is a range of expected outcomes on the way to your goal, rather than a straight line. saving for college, deciding on a substantial charitable gift, a sudden illness, redeploying assets can all place downward pressure on your resources. Not to mention, the market obviously plays a sizable role as well, but because we manage risk, not returns, we're able to make forward-looking assumptions about the possibilities of risk and reward and asset combinations required to achieve an optimal balance. This allows us to taper risk in your portfolio as you near your target, making adjustments to protect some assets and grow others. We do this because things can and they do change. The risk you accepted at age 45 may have been more appropriate than at age 65 because time was more abundant. So we must construct then the smart risk budget for you so that you are comfortable with the risk and more confident that your wealth will sustain your requirements. We accept that 2/3 of outcomes will occur within the first boundary. 95 out of 100 will occur within the second, and statistically 99 out of 100 within the third at a given point in time. In all likelihood, the portfolio will experience all of these over the course of time. So the outer limit must be the acceptable curve, even though the high probability is that 99% of the time, your path to your goal will follow well within these boundaries. Suppose if we could predict the portfolio's value over its lifetime. Its path looks something like this, and it appears that the portfolio is going to come up short of the target at the deadline that was set. But is the deadline absolute? Is it set in stone? Or is it dynamic, changeable? Adjustments can be made even as you transition into retirement that can get you to your destination comfortably. For example, you may change or delay some income requirements, or you may decide to save more while working for a few extra years. It's not a matter of having to turn $1 into $6. A lot happens in between. The returns compound over time. You'll make periodic contributions to your plan. You may advance in your career and your income may increase. You'll grow your business. You may receive an inheritance, and together we'll invest wisely and manage your portfolio with the utmost care and expertise. Thus, as you reach your destination, your portfolio can continue to help you sustain your lifestyle, enhancing the proposition that we're enhancing the ability to enjoy your stay. Now, we combine this idea with that of the critical path. When we do this, it can provide clarity on whether we need to make subtle adjustments to your portfolio or if more significant changes are necessary, or perhaps if we should do nothing at all, because a lot of things can happen on the way. We've seen that in this life, especially over the last decade. Sometimes we can see them coming, sometimes we just can't. The ones we can't foresee we refer to as black swan events, because they're so rare and seemingly they just come out of nowhere. They can occur on a national or international level and change the direction of the markets, often for the worse. Similar events can happen in your personal or business life and create an obstacle on the path to your goal. There may come a business challenge where you must guarantee debt and pledge assets. Your health or a loved one's health may change suddenly, or a family emergency could arise. Events such as these obviously create fear, or at the very least uncertainty about the future. But many of these situations have solutions. The outcome, as with many things in life, is a function of how you react to it. This is the time to survey the landscape to understand what is happening. Is this an approaching waterfall or just some rough rapids? That is to say, is it necessary to completely change direction and get out of the river entirely to avoid a plunge, or something that would be better paddled through and ridden out? There are options available. Risk can be shared for a price to help regain ground. Seeing that at this point your portfolio is slightly underperforming, you may worry that you have to make significant changes to minimize losses. But remembering the critical path and its meaning, we can see here in this example that the portfolio is far from that point, and wholesale changes may be unwarranted and even detrimental depending on the situation. The goal is to reduce the emotions of fear and greed from the decision-making process by providing tools and metrics, the right information, to consider options as objectively as possible. We find it's a much more comfortable way to enjoy the journey and eventually enjoy your stay because you've been given choices whose outcomes may not be certain, but are designed to make you more confident and thus more comfortable. That takes time and the confidence to accept that your guidance is coming from sound judgment and experience.